Hello people of YouTube, it's Deephack here, and welcome to DCS World 2.9.5 and Polychop Simulations OH-58D Kiowa Warrior module. Welcome to Tutorial 2, the MMS. The MMS, or the Mast-Mounted Sight, is the primary sensor of the Kiowa, and it's, funnily enough, mounted on the mast here, as we can see. It's the thing that looks kind of like the Death Star, and it has a built-in TVS, which is the television sight. It has a TIS, or TIS, which is the thermal imaging sensor, and it also has a laser rangefinder and designator. So a very, very comprehensive suite of equipment mounted up there high on the mast. This is used for tracking targets, generating target locations, range finding, designating, all that sort of good stuff. Also, you can lock it forwards and overlay the video underneath the pilot's VSD as well. I guess you might do that under certain circumstances. If we jump into the cockpit right now, I've got Burundis flying for us as the AI pilot, so I don't need to worry too much about that. I'm in the left seat as the CPG, and we're looking at the MMS page. If I click away to somewhere else, you can see what the other pages look like, but I've chosen MMS, and you can see enunciated at the bottom the current master mode. Actually, minor modes are also shown here as well, but current main mode is off. Funnily enough, everything is completely powered off at the current time. So I'll go over the controls that we have associated with the MMS here on the panel. We have push buttons to show up the laser codes. If I click this, it will show all of the pre-programmed laser codes. We have them labeled A to H, and we can edit these within this page by simply clicking on the one we want to edit and then using the keyboard. So if I wanted to change this code to something else, I could simply type the number and hit enter. That's me now changed the code for alpha. If I press the laser code button again, we will return to the main MMS page. We've got the controls for the laser here. It's power selector here, currently in off. It can be in off or standby or armed. We can also control which of the returns that we get. The Apache has the same control, so first or last return. This could be useful if there are obstructions or foliage or whatever, especially if we're trying to laze at longer ranges. I don't know how much of this is actually simulated in DCS though. We then have the video control intensity settings here. So some of these are implemented and some of these are not. We've got symbol intensity for the multifunction display, for the MMS overlay. We've got video gain and video level, and then we have the video focus, which is not functional in DCS. There are also manual and automatic selections for some of these. None of these are functional in DCS. You then have the MMS main mode rotary here, currently in off. It has the mode for stow, which is the mode that you always need to place it in before powering it off to have the system correctly stow and store its gyroscope data, I think it does, or something like that. Pre-flight allows you to make certain adjustments and bore sightings to the system, but that doesn't really do anything in DCS because our MMS is always perfectly aligned in DCS, so you can ignore pre-flight. And then there are the three operational modes in which the MMS is actually employed. And we have pre-point, forward, and search, and we'll cover those in just a little bit. The only other controls on the panel here that actually do anything is the LMC control here. Linear motion control. It works the same way as in the Apache. You're probably going to want to operate with this on most of the time, I guess. I don't know how much of a difference it actually makes. The other modes that are on here are not implemented. So you can't use things like ALE or TIS integration or whatever any of these things are. They don't do anything as yet. We do have access to the init page though using this switch. We have the ability to get to L2 mums using this init button, and we can get to the weapons and ASC pages from here as well. So these switches work, but the ones that are related to functions of the MMS do not work, apart from LMC. So let's jump back to MMS again, and let's pop the system into store, and you'll see that immediately it said store complete, and now it says tis hot. The MMS at this point has actually been powered, but the thermal imaging sensor is not ready for use because it has to be cooled to actually work correctly. We could then pop the system into pre-flight, and in pre-flight mode we'll actually get video, although we can't slew or anything like that, and it has two modes set up and pre-flight. As I said, none of these really do anything in DCS. This is designed to allow you to calibrate your display and bore sight the sensor and things like that, neither of which you need to do in DCS. So we would then go ahead and put it into one of the operational or functional modes. Let's go ahead and go straight into forward. That's the one that we're going to cover first. At this time, the sensor is still effectively stowed. It's basically pointing backwards straight over the tail. So the first thing that I could do is, the first button that you're going to be interested in, actually, let me go over some of the buttons very quickly because you're going to want to know these. This is all in the OH-58D Copilot, by the way. First button that you're going to want is MMS manual/slave mode. You're going to use this a lot. This will pop the MMS into the currently selected mode, or it will, well, basically it'll flip it between the current mode and being in manual. In manual mode, you can simply slew it manually, but when it's in slave mode, it'll be pointing at whatever it's supposed to be pointing at in the currently selected master or slave mode, or sub mode, sorry. You're then going to want to be able to point track. So there's a control here that's called MMS point track on, or the hog menu selection confirm. We'll get into that a little bit later. You're also going to want the MMS sensor select. This will flip you between TV and TIS. You're going to want the control for target designation. You're also going to want the one for nav designate. You're also going to want, I pressed the wrong button there. We're going to want the one for frame freeze or target select. We're going to want area track. We're going to want the control for field of view wide toggle, field of view narrow toggle. And I think that's everything we basically need. Yeah, so point track, area track, designate functions, sensor select, and the field of views. So I'll go over how these work. So as I said, we're in forward operating mode just now. The sensor, although it's on now, the TIS is not ready and it's pointed over the tail. If I tap manual slave, you'll see that we're now in manual. It'll say manual at the bottom, and you'll see that we get this different kind of reticle. I can now slew, and actually I should have shown you what that slew was. I've got an axis defined for this, and the one I'm using here is MMS line of sight, LOS slew, horizontal and vertical. You're going to need that. So I can now slew the sensor, and if I press the manual slave button one more time, it will now go to slave, and slave in forward mode will always point the mast forwards, because that's what forward mode does. And so when you're flying normally, you're probably often going to use this mode, and the pilot would then have the option of overlaying this on their VSD if they wanted, and it's basically going to be the line of sight of the helicopter. I don't know how many people actually do that. So from here, we can then just immediately maneuver away, and if we maneuver away from forward, we're in something that's actually called uncommanded mode. So in this uncommanded mode, there's no ground stabilization, there's no rates or anything like that, and so it's a bit kind of bobby. Now I'm in a perfect hover, but if we were maneuvering right now, this would be all over the place. If I tap manual slave button again, though, I'm now in manual, and in this mode we are now actually ground stabilized, and it's going to be much easier to control things. And actually I'll put the LMC on, although as I said, I don't know how much of a difference that actually makes. So we're able to move around in the forward mode quite happily, and if I tap the manual slave button again, it's going to lock back up to the forward position. Tap it again, we're back into manual. And that's kind of the most basic way that you can actually operate the thing. Next, we're going to actually try doing some tracks. Oh, actually, something else I should mention is the symbology we have here. The symbology, we've got the heading tape across the top. The triangle is where the MMS is looking right now. The lubber line, this little line here, is where the aircraft is facing. And this caret is the currently selected waypoint. You'll also note that we have information about the laser at the top left. We're currently on code alpha and the laser is off. I'm going to move the laser to standby. It now reports standby. I can move it to armed and it now shows armed. I can click to go through the different selections. So we're in code alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and so on. It confirms the codes on the screen. We can also have it in ranging only mode. And in this mode, it will not fire the designation laser. It will just give us a range. If I pull the laser ranging trigger, You can see I get flashing range at the top left, which will actually update as I move the MMS and as long as I hold the trigger. And when I release the trigger, it stops flashing and it shows me the last range that I had for a period of time. The mark system is not implemented. Tracker feature is not implemented. Vixel list is not implemented. We have the normal and inverted video modes here. And if I switch to TIS, which is now actually cooled, that allows us to flip between white hot and black hot modes as well. I'm going to push the selector again and put us back into the TVS. On the right hand side, auto cue is not implemented. Record is not implemented. VTR control page is not implemented. Declutter, however, is. We've got a couple of levels of declutter. So this is the normal mode. We've got declutter 1, which just takes away the controls, and declutter 2, which takes away everything, and we just have video output. And then we can press it again to get it all back. Okay, let's look over our shoulders here and see if we can find some targets to take a little look at. Something else to note actually is that we have the MMS's offset from bore sight just now. So I'm looking 13 degrees down and 80 degrees to the right. So that's quite a handy reference to help us figure out where exactly we're looking right now. I'm just going to have a look around, and here we go. This is what I wanted to see. Some vehicles. So, I've got, as I showed you before, the wide and the narrow field of view toggles. Right now, I'm in wide field of view. We can tell that because we have brackets. And the brackets show us what we would see in the narrow field of view. So let's put the brackets over a target, and I'm going to push narrow. And we're now in narrow field of view with no magnification. If I press narrow again, we'll be in 2 times magnification, which is confirmed down here. And again, we know we're in narrow because there are no brackets. If I push narrow again, we're now in 4 times magnification and still in narrow. And if I press narrow one more time, we're now back zoomed out, but in narrow. And if I push wide, we're now in wide again, as I can tell, because I've got brackets. If I push wide again, we're still in wide, but now we're 2 times zoomed. Press again, we're now 4 times zoomed. Press again, and we're back out to wide without zoom. Actually, pop it into narrow right now so we can take a look at these chappies. Excellent. So, something I'm going to now show you how to do is how to create target designations, because that's something you'll probably want to do quite a lot of the time. So if I press the target designation button while I've got something on the crosshairs, you'll see that it goes into range mode. That's actually not what I was expecting. Let's try that again. Oh, target, yeah, we go, target location. So, that's what I was actually expecting to see. We're currently in target location mode. Now, that on its own doesn't do anything yet. It's basically preparing the system to create a target location. What we now need to do is pull the trigger on the laser for a number of seconds. And eventually, we get the store controls down the side. Let me actually quickly pause this before they go away, because they will disappear after a period of time. So we've got the options to store more, to just store, and that will automatically put it in target 99, and then subsequent ones will be 98, 97, and so on, or reject that location. I'm going to just press store at this time, and I've now created a target point. And we can confirm that if I go into the HSD, nav setup, target list, I already had a couple of targets from before, and go previous page, there we go, 99 Tango, 1 unit, unknown type, location, elevation, and I think that's an automatically generated like fire mission number or something. I'm not 100% sure what that is. So, you can see there we were able to generate a target by doing that. We simply press the button and then push and hold the laser trigger. Let's do that again, but this time I'm going to choose a different location actually, because I've already stored stuff over there. How about this wonderful light pole? So again, target designate. We'll confirm it says range mode. Then it says target location. I'm going to pull the laser until I get the symbology. There we go. And this time I'm going to press store more, and we get this little menu pop up here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out the number it had, and I'm actually going to make this target number 5 and press enter. It's now going to ask me target quantity. Now, we can use the wide and narrow controls as up and down in these menus, and then we can actually use the point track as the select. So I'm going to say that there's a single target here, so I'm going to press the point track. It's going to say, okay, what type of target is this? I'm going to say more, and I'm going to say that it is engineering, I guess. So I've selected that. I'm going to say unknown type. Select that. We can enter an artillery mission number. That kind of doesn't really matter, so I'm going to go down and select none and press point again. And now if I press point one last time, we can store it, or we can go back and modify it. I'm going to, in fact, store it, and that point has now been stored. So again, if I go into the HSD, nav setup, target list, you can now see that we have 5 Tango, single unit, unknown type. And that's all in there. So that's how you use those functions. Next, I'm going to demonstrate how we actually make use of area and point tracks. Area track is kind of fairly self-explanatory. If I push area track just now, you'll see that it says area track, and at this point we could maneuver the aircraft around and do all kinds of stuff, and this point on the ground is going to remain centered on the crosshairs. And also note that my line of sight controls are now disabled. I can't accidentally bump this and point it somewhere else. If I hit area track, oops, no, I didn't want to do that. If I hit the manual slave button, we return to manual, and now I can slave it around. And again, area track, that now locks out the control. So anyway, going to hit manual, we're back in manual. The other one is the point track. Now point track will try to get a contrast lock. This is kind of handy because if the thing you're tracking is moving, it will continue to track it. So for example, if I move my crosshairs over one of these vehicles and I hit point track, you'll see that the box grew until it encompassed the target, and it got a good enough contrast lock, and now we're just looking at that target, and it retains the box around the currently identified target, and it says point track at the bottom. So those are the two standard tracking modes we have, area track and point track. I'm going to get set up in just a moment, and I will demonstrate some of the sub-modes now. Okay, the first of the subset modes that I'm going to demonstrate is Acquire on the Move. Now, Acquire on the Move allows you to actually track up to 6 targets all at the same time and quickly transition between them. This mode can be entered from either area track or point track. I'm going to demonstrate it with these two vehicles here from a point track. So, I'm currently in manual mode. I'm going to hit point track, and I have a point track on that particular vehicle. I'm now going to go ahead and press the area track button, and that gives me a diamond that I can slew around. Actually, it didn't work. If you're not quick enough, it actually stops. So let me go back into point track here, area track, and I have my diamond. And as long as I'm moving the diamond, nothing will happen. But once I stop over a target, it will immediately designate that as a secondary target. I can now press the freeze, unfreeze, or target select button. It's the same control. If I press that, it will change which of these targets has the thick border. And if I press point track, I can actually flip between these two targets now. Very, very quickly. So this is quite good if you want to ripple off Hellfires or maybe APKWS and things like that. And as I said, the system will track up to 6 of these targets like this. If I want to drop my Acquire on the Move targets, I can simply press the manual/slave button, and we're back into manual, and those targets have been dropped now. Okay, and the last two submodes that we have for the MMS are the Offset Acquire and Offset Track modes. Now, Offset Acquire is an interesting mode where you can basically visually track a target but actually be firing the laser in a slightly different position. I gather in the real world people would do this to avoid setting off laser warning systems, or if you wanted to ensure that your Hellfire or similar weapon avoids an obstruction and then swoops down in a particular way, maybe. But this is done from either a point track or an Acquire on the Move, and we can do it by pressing point track again. So if I move my cursor over this particular target, I'm actually going to give it narrow just now, and I go point track. Oh, that was a failure to point track. Let's try again. Got it. If I go point track again, I will now get this little crosshair. And I can move this crosshair wherever I like, and if this was a moving target, it would retain its position relative to my target. And this is where the laser is actually firing. If I pull my laser trigger just now, that's the location that's actually being lased. And so if I wanted to, I could hold it off, and then as my weapon approaches the target, I could move it on. And then that would avoid setting off the target's laser warning receiver until the last possible second. Now from here, I'm actually going to go back to wide. From here, we can also press point track again and go into the offset track mode. So let me choose a location and go point track again. It will immediately slew to where I had the crosshair. And if I press point track again, it will immediately slew back again. So just to note that one, that's offset tracking. So point track again, move my little cursor, point track again, it brings me to this location, point track again, it returns me to the original target, and it's now removed the cursor. And that's all the basic functionality that you have in forward operating mode. So next we'll cover pre-point and search operational modes. I'll actually do search just now. First, what I'll do though is I'm going to go ahead and go back to manual and then hit slave. We'll get the MMS pointing forwards again, so we're nice and reset. And while it's doing that, let's go ahead and pop into search mode. Now, search mode has two sub-modes. We can be in a point search or in a sweep. If we put it into sweep mode, I'll demonstrate this one first. It can either be slow or fast, and we can choose an angle. I've currently got it set for 10 degrees. If I now press the manual button, we'll get into manual. If I press it again, we'll now be in the search mode. And you can see it says search, and it's actually going to sweep backwards and forwards 10 degrees. This is probably of fairly limited utility, like you could do these sweeps yourself. And one further thing you can do is you can have an offset. So currently we're looking forwards. We actually tell it that we want it to be 90 degrees to the right and do a 10-degree sweep. The system will automatically do that for us if I give it a little bit of time. It doesn't... Oh, actually, I guess I could put it into fast, and then it'll move a little bit quicker. So there we go, we're now in a fast sweep, 10 degrees either side of 90 degrees to the right, and I can do the same for the left, and it will now look 90 degrees left and do a 10-degree sweep. I can also click this button to increase the amount of sweep I want, and it will now do a 30 degrees sweep either side of 90 degrees left, and you can see it beginning to do that now. So probably not a super duper useful mode, but there it is. I'm going to hit manual again and just lock it where it is now. And if I go out of sweep and go into point, we can now actually tell it a series of points that we want it to sweep between. So if I click the point menu, you can see I've already got it pre-programmed for target 1 and target 2. Let's go ahead and hit the slave button now, and it will immediately do that. The other control we have is the dwell time. It's currently going to dwell 3 seconds on each point. So that's target 1, 1, 2, 3. It didn't move. Wait a minute. That's supposed to go between these points. Why is it not working? Okay, that's weird. I don't know why that didn't work. Let's actually try changing this. Let's go 5 as a target point. It says error. 5. Well, maybe I need to clear that out now. 5. Enter. Ah, it must want 5 tango. Error. Okay. I do not understand why that's not working. That was actually just working moments ago. Let's go and take a little look at our nav setup very quickly. Yeah, we have targets 1 and 2. That's weird. Okay. Let's go back in and we'll give it one last try. Let's go 1 tango. Enter. Nope. 1 tango. Enter. Error. No, it doesn't want to work anymore. In any case, what it's supposed to do is sweep between each of those points and then actually dwell for the number of seconds that it's programmed for. And that's the only 2 features of this system. You've got sweep and you've got point. Yeah, point is just looking down there for some reason. Anyway, doesn't matter too much. The last of the main operational modes is pre-point. Let me actually just pop this back into manual for now. In pre-point mode, what you can do is you can actually slew the MMS to any point you already have stored. So it could be a control point, a target, or a waypoint. And you can see you've got this PPT menu up here. If I click it, I've got all the different points that I could switch between. So I've got 1 tango, 2 tango, and the manual point will always be the last target you created. Let me actually add some stuff into here as well, actually. Let's have 1W as a point in here as well. Enter. Akrotiri. Yep. Cycle it down again. Let's have 2 whiskey. Enter. And let's have 3 whiskey, just so we've got a bunch of points in here. And this effectively acts as like a kind of hotkey quick access menu here. So if I now hit slave, it's going to go to 3W. If I cycle to 1 tango, it's now looking at 1 tango. Cycle again, 2 tango. Akrotiri, which is directly underneath me, and so on. I could cycle through all of these points like this. Yeah, I can cycle between manual and pre-point by using the manual slave button. So, nice and simple. And that's all that pre-point does. It's just a really, really good way of sort of cueing the sensor directly to the thing that you want to look at. Alrighty. Those are all the features of the mast-mounted sight in the OH-58D Kiowa Warrior. One last thing that I didn't mention was that it can slew left and right 190 degrees, and it has the ability to tilt up and down 30 degrees. Okay, thank you all very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and comment. It's a really big help to me and to the channel. If you'd like to further support the channel, you have the option of joining Deephack's ground crew by clicking the join button below. It's a small monthly fee and it really helps me in creating this content. Big shout out to those of you who've already done so. The current members of the ground crew are on screen now. You have some small benefits. Of course, you're helping me, but you also gain access to a Deephack's ground crew Discord server where we can all kind of interact. I've also been uploading mission files that I've been using in some of my tutorials, and we also occasionally fly together. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.